Hello, everybody. Nobody watching yet, but we're going to give it a couple minutes. Oh, we already got somebody on. Thanks for joining. We're waiting on our guest, Drew Dougherty from the Houston Texans, Texans TV. Will be on with us. Hey, Brian. Thanks for joining. We'll just give it a couple minutes here. Oh, there's the man of the hour, Drew Dougherty. Thank you, sir. Brian said, nice shirt. Had to rep the Astros today. Let me see here. We're going to add Drew Dougherty to the call. Waiting on the connection here. My man. Drew, you there? Drew, how's it going, man? Connection's a little choppy. Let me see. Can you hear me? Drew, I can see you, but you're just like a... There we go. Getting a little better.
Is that better now? Can you hear me now? It's like the Verizon commercial.
I can hear you now.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
Got the 4-year-old is watching some Pokemon, so you might hear a little bit of that. Is this better?
Yeah, a lot better for sure.
All right. Yeah. So
you never know where this stuff works and where it doesn't work.
I know. I've been doing it from. I've been doing stuff like that from my bedroom for work for like the last, 3 weeks. It's been fine. So it's kind of weird. Hey, your mom is on. Hey, Miss Scurfield.
She is. Hey, Mom. I told her I was doing a video with you, and I don't think she was going to miss that for anything. So
I love it. I'm a big fan of hers. So yes.
It's good to know we have one fan out there.
Right. That's right.
Yep. I'm wearing my Astros shirt today in light of the Boston Red Sox ruling that came down yesterday, which I think was total BS. That they didn't get in any trouble at all. But
yeah.
Anyway.
That's not fun. As you know, I'm from here, lifelong Astros fan back in the Jose Cruz days. So disappointing what's happened over the last few years for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me go ahead and introduce you to everybody first. I appreciate you being on, Drew.
Okay.
And for those who do not know Drew, well, first of all, you're missing out. But Drew is the host of Texans TV for the Houston Texans. The senior integrated. What is it? Senior. What's the rest of your title? I'm messing it up.
Senior integrated media manager.
Senior integrated media manager.
Yep.
This is your 12th year with the team, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, started in 2009.
And so I thought it'd be great to chat with you today, Drew. Obviously, the NFL Draft is coming up this weekend, starting tomorrow, most likely for the Texans. So we want to talk about the draft, but I also really wanted to talk to you about just how this whole crazy pandemic has been affecting the world of sports. Obviously, no games are happening right now, and you guys are all having to work from home. And this is the second episode of the Scurf show, and I had to start it out with some of my favorite people. So really appreciate you being on here, and our whole goal here is to spread some positivity, and I couldn't think of a more positive person to have on than you, man.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. You talk about adjusting with during this pandemic and working from home. You just saw the top of another head. That's Oliver's. I mentioned his. It's my 4-year-old son. Say hi, Oliver.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, Oliver.
He's with me today. My wife is out running errands with the other 3, so they'll pop in from time to time. You're going to hear my dogs bark there. Yeah, right there. We have 2 wiener dogs. And, hey, can you go let her out? And she sees squirrels outside, so she's going. Normally, I do these things in the master bedroom where we started, away from distractions, but it's just not. I guess for some reason the internet doesn't work on Instagram, so I apologize.
No, this is the real deal, man. This is great. A little more about Drew's background. The pride of Strake Jesuit here in Houston. a record-setting swimmer and runner back in his heyday. But also
set.
Now the host of Texans TV, as I mentioned, you and I worked together for probably 4 or 5 years with the Texans back in the Gary Kubiak days. Drew is the on-air talent for video on HoustonTexans.com. It can be heard on all team-related shows, including Texans Extra Points, Texans 360, Texans Buzz on ABC 13. And you're also one of my favorite things about going to Texans games is seeing you on the video board for halftime, pregame, the postgame shows up there with Chester Pitts, doing your thing. And not to mention on the internet, you've got several shows. Dear Drew, tell me if I missed any of these. Dear Drew, Drew's Dozen, Puntos Extra, and La Voz de los Texans on HoustonTexans.com.
No, La Voz de los Texans, that's Enrique Vasquez. He's the voice of the Houston Texans in Spanish. So I do Puntos Extra with him. Yeah.
You sent me, I think that was on your bio that you sent earlier, and my Spanish is so bad that I didn't even catch that part of it.
Hey, who's counting, right?
Yeah.
Your Hawaiian is great, though. Your Hawaiian is great. He just introduced me. So if you didn't know this about Nick, he lived in Hawaii for 4 or 5 years growing up?
5 years, that's correct.
5 years. And when we went to cover the 2012 Pro Bowl, which was right after the 11th season, Nick had all the cool spots mapped out. And I was like, how do you pronounce that word? Is that the Lac Highway? And he's like, no, it's Leaky Highway. I mean, he had it all broke. You nailed all that stuff. So it was good.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Go Hawaii.
Yeah, hence the Hawaiian shirt, Hawaiian background here. Figure we got to try and bring the festivities up a little bit. What are you drinking there? I was with Ryan Lashane yesterday from Riel drinking Miller Lite. I take it that's not a Miller Lite.
No, a little early for that right now. I do like Miller Lite, but I'm just drinking an ice water right now. Well, thirsty, staying hydrated. So I got a big night, big weekend ahead because it's the draft. So
yeah, I want to, and you're all business. So
yeah,
I want to definitely talk about the Texans draft and where you think we might end up this weekend. Some of the players or positions the Texans might be targeting, what the whole setup's going to be like. Also want to get into your background coming from Texas Tech, your old work days, I should say, there at Texas Tech, where you did TV with Mike Leach.
Yes.
Of course, you went to SMU, also known as the USC of Texas, which we can talk about.
USC is the SMU of the West.
Something like that. And maybe some other stuff we'll get into. But really to start out, I just wanted to ask, what this has been like in the sports world. You've been with the Texans for 11, 12 years now. And I can just imagine what a shock has been for everybody. But for you, this is a much different setting for you than working at NRG Stadium. How did this all play out when the rodeo was shut down and everything like that, and the team had to no longer exist as it usually did?
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, I alluded to it a few moments ago. Like, I've got little, Oliver's waving a popsicle just a second ago. But okay, stop. Every year, just to start things off, every year during the rodeo, I'll dress up in a suit and tie, and one of our players he'll wear like a cowboy hat and a cowboy, Western shirt, and we'll go through the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo Carnival, and we'll shoot a video, and like most of the people there don't know much about the Texans a lot of times, and so they see these two people, one of whom's in a suit, and the other one who's usually enormous, walking through, and they're like, "What is going on?" So it's always like a fun little sight gag. Well, we were going to do that this year with Jacob Martin, who he's from Houston. He was, raised in Houston. So we were set to go, and it was going to be at noon on like a Wednesday or Thursday. And we get there, and like 11 o'clock, one of my friends from media relations with the Texans came in and said, "Hey, it doesn't look like we're going to do it today. Something's going on with the rodeo. We're not quite sure." 20 minutes later, they held the press conference, and they were shutting down the rodeo because of this. And I was like, this is bananas. And then like a week and a half later, everything got shut down. And we had been told to work from home for about a week. you know.
Sorry to interrupt. You were probably really sad to miss the Lizzo concert that Friday night, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I love the rodeo. You know, I'm from here, and so I just love this time of year. It's the best time of year. You know,
Yeah,
the rodeo's
I like
beautiful.
Lizzo. I don't think you're as much of a Lizzo fan. I was joking, but
I like her songs. I don't know many. I just know the ones that are on the radio. But yeah, you know, it was just a big bummer, and that was, I mean, that was just one small domino in one of many that's happened in this whole thing. Hold on a second. Hey, you gotta be quiet, all right? Go watch the show.
it's okay if he keeps going. It's probably the most entertaining part of this whole interview anyway. So
I'll turn this off. I will turn this off. Yeah, so it's just so weird, you know, like working from home. And I mean, the day starts differently because the kids, like I mentioned, I've got, you know, he's got an older brother and sister that are twins that are 6. They're in kindergarten and they're doing their Zoom learning online. And, you know, my wife works, and so she's got a job and she's working from home now. And so you have to parcel up your day in so many different ways and work in so many different ways. And hey, we've got it. We're lucky. We've got jobs. So I'm not complaining. It's just, it's a new challenge, and it's something different than what we were doing, you know, for however many years prior to this.
yeah, our friend Debbie the Texan is on
Yeah,
and said she was working at the rodeo, second favorite time of the year.
same, Debbie. I know it's the best. It's the best.
Yeah,
I hope you're doing great, Debbie. Debbie's a teacher. Debbie knows what's going on. I mean, I can't imagine. It's given. Yeah, we always appreciate. I know you. I'll speak for you here. We always appreciated our
not the first
teachers.
time. Not the first time.
And it won't be the last. But I know you. You appreciated your teachers from growing up. You appreciate what they do now and the great task that they have. But it just reinforced it and made it come home, having to do all this stuff and having to teach these kids. So it's tricky, man.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, you got it made when you're working for the Texans. As far as you can't have better proximity to the rodeo. It's a blessing and a curse
Oh,
sometimes.
yeah.
It's great. I remember going. I mean, you could literally walk out of the offices there at NRG Stadium, and you're at the cook-off, or you're literally in the arena. You know, where everything's going on. Of
Yeah.
course, traffic and parking and all that's really terrible for like a month when you're working there. But I mean, I bet you could give anything to have that stuff now.
Totally. I mean, yeah, like a year ago, I was walking down the hall around this time of day. Yeah, 3:15. I was walking down the hall, and I heard the sound check going on for the next night or that night's show, and it was Amarillo by Morning, which is a George Strait song, but Garth Brooks was playing it. He was playing that. I guess he covered it that night or the next night, and it was just so surreal knowing that that's going on. You know, one of the all-time greats is covering a song from another great. So yeah.
So what has the transition been like, and how have you been doing your job, and how has the team been operating? Are coaches, doing meetings? Are they,
They're
doing a
like
bunch of
us.
Zoom calls?
They're like us. They're working from home. They're Zooming. They're on the phone, getting in touch with prospects, all that stuff. So it's the same type of thing. I mean, they're having to adjust as well, and obviously technology is taken over and come to the forefront and been so much more important through all this. But my job, like for instance, on Saturday night, you mentioned those shows that I host. Saturday
Yeah.
night, we still have a show, whether it's the off season or in season. It's Texans 360. It's on Channel 13, 11 o'clock. It's on the Texans TV network, so it's on in San Antonio and Austin, all over the state. But normally we'll shoot that thing on a Wednesday or Thursday, and it'll be me and a guest, on a set, which is in the, right across from the locker room in the stadium. And then we have 2 cameramen, and it's a 3-camera shoot. And then there's a guy in back directing, and sometimes he has somebody riding shotgun with him, helping him out. So you're talking about 2, 4, 6 people total, typically to get this show on the air. And now we're doing it with 2. It's me, and I'm shooting it from my bedroom with my camera phone, and then I text in the videos. Yeah, well, I make sure they're out of there, and so I text him the videos, and he edits it together. So it's mighty different.
Man, so what's the setup going to be like for the draft this weekend?
A lot of the same. I mean, we'll shoot off of our computers. We've gotten some cameras that hook in and some better sound, so we'll shoot off our computers. Hosting some happy hours, some interviews with fans and players and stuff like that. So and then, once the picks start coming in, it's just like when you were there with me. We'll have conference calls via Zoom. We'll write some articles, hammer out some content, and try to get our fans to know who these guys are that have just become Texans.
Yeah, I know. Usually after the draft, you're doing cool behind-the-scenes videos. You'll meet the guys at the airport and mic them up and go to their press conference and all that. And not going to have any of that this year, I guess, huh?
No, it's tough, and you bring that up. So 10, 11, 12, and 13, I met our first-round pick the morning after at the airport. And it was, J.J. Watt walking out of the secure area, and it's me and Sean Washington, who used to work with the Texans. First people he met. I'm like, "Hi, JJ. Good to meet you. Welcome to Houston. I'm Drew Dougherty." Put this microphone on, and we just followed him around and saw some really cool stuff with him. So, it's a bummer. I miss it. It's you remember what it was like. It's like a game day 3 days in a row, and there is nothing better about our job than game day. So it's still going to be fun, but it's just not going to be the same.
Debbie said, we love Texans 360. We also just had our friends at Running Game, HTX, just join.
I got to give them a shout out because that's pretty much their T-shirts are basically my uniform these days. Like, I haven't worn long pants in 3 weeks. But
I should be wearing some Running Game right now.
I know. I'm doing the company thing, but I've usually got my H-Town T-shirt on, my navy blue H-Town, that red HOU that's awesome. The clutch one, I love Running Game clothing. So
yeah, I didn't even realize you were wearing a Texans polo. I see the logo below there a little bit now, but yeah, there you go. Running Game is awesome. They make some of the best gear out there, and one of these, we'll have to do another one of these, Drew, where we're both rocking our stuff.
You need to get them on too, man. Sheesh.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody has questions for Drew, send them in. Don't feel the need to hold anything back. He's got thick skin, but
hold a little bit back if you need to.
I want to take questions throughout as we're going through as well, but I wanted to talk just a little more about what it is that you do for the team, what you've done for the team, and also some stories, some reminiscing. And I'm going to hit you with a few questions at the end, Drew, much like your Drew's Dozen podcast, which you had me on for not too long ago.
Yep.
I don't know if I have a dozen questions for you, but I'll have a few good ones at the very end.
It works.
And so, first of all, you mentioned to me on the phone earlier, you're doing something with your alma mater, Strake. Of course, Strake College Prep here in Houston. What do you have coming up there?
Well, they do their gala every year, to raise money for the school, and they're just like everybody else. Their gala is not happening. It's not going to be going on. So they're transitioning and doing it online, virtually. And so I'm going to host, as well as DP Sidhu. She's got a son. She's a sophomore at Strake Jesuit. So we're going to kind of co-host. It'll be a condensed thing where we introduce a bunch of auction items, stuff like that, kind of give information, but, trying to help out and still raise money. And it's a great place. I loved it. I had 4 wonderful years there. Got so many great friends that I still keep in touch with on a daily basis. And it's an awesome spot.
I think a lot of people that may be watching or people that you meet probably wonder how you got your job, how you end up working in pro sports, working for the Houston Texans, doing media on camera. That is would be a very long-winded answer, I'm sure. But let's go way back. One of your first jobs doing where'd you get your start, Drew, out of college?
Bank One. So like I got a job I think in December of my senior year in like a management training program with Bank One, who's since been absorbed by Chase. Bank One was a big bank. But I got this job. I started like a week after graduation, and it was kind of like you learned all these aspects of the banking industry, and God bless those people that do that. But I was daydreaming the whole time. I was just like, I got to get a job. I couldn't get I didn't think like a job in sports was realistic. So I did that for like 5 months. And a girl that I'd written with at the school paper at SMU, she called me up and said, "Hey, I'm getting married and I'm moving to Seattle. would you like to interview for this job that I have already? Because I'm leaving. I was like, what do you do? And she told me, and basically she was a producer at a sports talk show on TV. It was like a 24-hour news. It was like a CNN for Texas, basically. So I pounced on that like a fumble. I got the job. Started in October 2000 and then left December of 04 because they laid 60 of us off out of like 75 that worked there. So I did that for 4 years. I started out as a producer and produced all the way through probably about 3 different shows at the end of it all. And then I was filling in as an anchor, as a sports anchor on some of these shows. So that's where I got my start.
And then you spent some years in Lubbock, Texas Tech. So any football fans out there are surely familiar with Mike Leach, who's now the head coach of Mississippi State. But I remember, I think not too long after I met you, I found out, and I thought this was the coolest thing ever. Mike Leach had a show that he did, and there was this famous clip of him where he's the head coach of the Texas Tech Red Raiders and known as a very quirky guy, and he just started giving dating advice, I think, on the show. And then come to find out when you started working for the Texans that you were the guy who asked him those questions on that show.
He was awesome. I loved working with him. And we'd go and we'd ask him those questions on Wednesday because that was a segment of the show where the fans got to ask stuff. But, like, the bulk of the show was the interview you did with him after the game, which, like, the game would end and he'd, do a quick radio interview with the people as he's walking off the field. Then he'd talk to a team, to the team. He'd go up and do, like, the mass media interview. And then we'd walk back onto the field, and I'd have to get like 7, 8, sometimes 10 minutes out of him. But the one you're referencing is somebody emailed in, and they're like, where's a good place I should take a girl on a first date? And, like, he would get about 10, 15 questions each week that we'd whittle down, and we'd present him with this sheet, and we'd have them all there, and he'd pick like 4 or 5 of them. And so after a Wednesday practice, we'd give it to him, and he'd go like, that's a stupid question. Well, that's a good question. I like that. I answered that question last week. I don't want to. So he'd like just cross off. He's like, where's a good place to take a first date? And we were just standing there, and somebody said, a steakhouse. He's like, yeah, okay. And then he gave this like epic, answer about it. It was pretty funny. It was one of many. I mean, I got a zillion Mike Leach stories. You've heard half of them. So it was a fun time working out there. I was there from like their glory days, 05 season, 06, 07, and 08. They went to the Cotton Bowl 2 of those years. They won the Gator Bowl.
Wreckham Tech.
Yeah, they were good, man. They were really good. That was when I was on the field when Crabtree scored that touchdown against UT. So it was fun.
Oh, yeah. I remember I was at a debutante ball in Houston when that happened. And I was rooting hard against the University of Texas because they beat my USC Trojans in that Rose Bowl with Vince Young. And when Crabtree scored that touchdown, I stood up and clapped really loudly and pumped my fists, and everybody else was a UT fan and just gave me a death stare. But
and then how about like a year later, you and I, we see Crabtree's first game because he held out like half of his rookie year, and then his first game was in Houston against the Texans when he was with the 49ers. Right. He caught like 4 passes for 7 yards. Yeah.
I remember you always rooting for those Texas Tech guys, even when the Texans would play against them. When Wes Welker, I think, got a big kick return for the Rams.
Amendola against the Rams.
Danny Amendola, that's what it was. Yeah, gave you a hard time about that back then.
That was fun.
Yeah. So what was your first year with the Texans?
2009. They went 9-7 that year. Final game, they beat the Patriots, and and after the game, they're in the playoff.
Yeah. My connection's getting a little spotty. I don't know if that's on my side or yours, but yeah. Yeah, that was a fun time. You and I both worked there. Yeah, I'm here. Connection's breaking up a little bit. You with me, Drew? Might have lost Drew. Debbie says Drew is cutting out. I thought so too. We might try Drew again if we can hang tight, everybody. Drew, we may have to move to another room again.
Back?
See you now.
Got me?
We're back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
We're there.
All right.
It's all right,
hey, Greg Ford is on. Sweet.
It's the magic of live internet television here.
Yeah. Oof. You can edit this. This will look. Nobody will know what we're talking about in the edit process. So, but where were we?
You were talking about the 2009 season, your first year of the team, ending 9-7 there. I remember that well. We were also, I think nothing beats probably the 2011 season when the team made the playoffs for the first time. What do you remember most about that year when the TJ Yates days when they finally broke through and made the playoffs?
Just such a fun bunch. We had started on the nose that year, and then they won. They were at 500 about a couple months in. I think they're 3-3, and then they just took off. Schaub went down, and then Leinart. We were kind of excited about Leinart because he was, he'd had some skins on the wall and had done some stuff at USC, and he lasts like less than a half, and then TJ comes in and. Man, I'll never forget that Cincinnati game there against the Bengals. Just so much fun because the Bengals led that game for all but 2 seconds. And I was on the field for that final drive, and I'm superstitious to a degree. So I stayed in one spot on the Texans sideline, basically where they began the drive, like deep in their territory. So I didn't move and just watched them march up the field until they scored. And that Owen Daniels catch, where he kind of snagged it with one hand. It's one of the greatest catches, and it doesn't do justice. The only thing that does justice is the angle I saw, because I saw him like reach his paw out and pull it in. It was amazing. Just play after play after play. It was so much fun.
Have you ever been hit by a football when you're standing on the sideline?
When I was covering the Red Raiders at Stillwater in 2007, it was about 115 degrees on the field, and I guess the Oklahoma State quarterback was practicing like quick throws to the sideline, and one like skipped and hit me in the side, but it wasn't nothing bad.
It was always a big fear of mine. Like anytime I'd go down to the field during a game, that somebody's going to spike a football in the end zone and hit me in the face, and I'd end up on SportsCenter. But
yeah, I'm surprised that didn't ever happen to you, because normally you're on your phone, and like I always joke that your chin is connected to your chest because you're always looking at your phone. I'm surprised that didn't happen.
Yeah, the phone is like an appendage pretty much for me, but some things I guess don't change in that regard. But so now you've got, we mentioned the draft coming up this weekend. Of course, it doesn't seem like the Texans have a pick until next year, but I know it's actually tomorrow, pick number 40.
Yep.
And so we've got, what do we have, 7 picks in the draft this year?
7, yeah. I get 3 in the 7th, the 2nd, 3rd, Miami's 4th, and then a 5th. So, yeah.
So what's the prognosis? I know it's hard to project, in terms of particular players when you're looking at number 40 overall as your first pick, but where do you think, what directions do you think the team might be going in the draft this year?
I think they're going to get something in the front 7 with that first, whenever that first choice is. And I'd sort of be mildly surprised if they did not trade back. I think they're going to trade back a little bit to try and get some more draft capital. But I still think whether they're picking 40th or later in the 40s or in the 50s, I think they're going with a defensive lineman, whether it's, a pass rusher or somebody on the interior. I do think they want to beef up the depth and the quality there. I think they like some of the guys that are coming back from both injury as well as, just Jacob Martin, Duke Ejiofor, they're guys that they've got kind of interesting ideas about. So I think they're going to try and get better at pass rush, unless there's just a freak wide receiver cornerback that's fallen. I think that's the route they go.
Getting a lot of likes on these comments from a few of the people in here, so thank you very much, and thanks everybody who's watching. I think you're a popular guy, Drew. The people love what you have to say. Do you have any idea what's going to happen after the draft, as far as how can players communicate with the team, pick up the playbook, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, they're doing it via Zoom. On the 27th is when the off-season program starts. It was going to start, at the stadium on the 20th, but they're going to do it all via Zoom and via Discord, next week, 27th, and they'll go through May 15th. It'll be tougher, but, you and I saw this to a degree. We saw this during the lockout year, 2011. I mean, they didn't do anything until training camp because it all ended late July. You had free agency. Texans, made that big splash, getting J-Joe, getting Danielle Manning on the same day. Those were huge signings and, helped change the course of the franchise, really. But it's going to be tough, and I think that's why we've seen some of these moves as far as getting veterans in here. Bill O'Brien talked about it last week on a conference call with the media. He doesn't think it's going to be a good year for rookies as far as
I lost you there after you said something about rookies.
Yeah, somebody keeps calling me. Some 346 number. What's 346?
That's a Houston area code.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's like the new Houston area code.
Gotcha. I got you.
Maybe Woodlands or beyond. I don't even know.
Oh.
But must be important.
I don't know, man.
But that makes sense. It'd be a hard year for rookies, because they're not able to spend as much time with the team. Have they given you guys any sort of indications about when things might be coming back and when you might be able to go back to the stadium?
We're kind of like the rest of you guys. It's going to happen when this all calms down. I mean, we could say there's a good chance of this happening this day, but we don't know. I mean, whenever it's safe enough to go back and everything with the county, as far as the county judges, what they decide, I think then you'll see a plan in place. I would be surprised if they just let everybody back in at once. I would kind of think they cycle back in and let people back in slowly because of the social distancing and everything. But yeah, we don't have a time yet or a day.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to see, some of the projections. I mean, you figure the fall will be fine, but then again, who knows with getting large groups of people together and all that. Have you been brushing up on your Madden skills like a lot of the actual NFL players are doing?
Man, I see all this stuff about people being bored and people binge watching shows and people. I saw somebody who I'm pretty fond of on Instagram the other day say, if you haven't come out of this whole experience with a new hobby or a new side hustle or something productive, you failed. And it's like, I would love to have free time. I mean, I've got 4 kids and my wife has a job and I have a job. Like, we are exhausted at the end of the day, and our day doesn't end until we get our kids in bed at like 9:15. So yeah, I've not what was the question? I don't even know.
You've been playing Madden?
No, I've not been playing Madden. No, I've not. Only Madden I have is in Spanish for some. I think Enrique Vasquez gave me a copy one time. The only games we play, we haven't played in a long time. We have a karaoke game called Lips. Sometimes my wife and I'll sing that one. It's fun. Been a few years.
Nice. Very nice.
Everybody wants to rule the world. Karaoke. So, yeah.
What's that?
Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. That's my go-to. So.
I did not know that about you. As many years as we've been friends.
Yeah, I've never tagged along with you and Cody and Barwin at Glitter Karaoke. So.
Well, yeah. Connor Barwin does not sing karaoke. I tried to get him to sing a song once, and he literally just left. When I think I put a song in. It was Lisa Loeb, "Stay," and I just put it in for him with the DJ. Yeah, and they called his name, and he just walked out the door. I don't know. He might be mad if I told you that, but Sorry.
Lisa Loeb, a little bit of trivia. She's from Dallas, and she sings the song, the intro song. I think it's for Oliver and Mouse. It's a show that my children love. So, yeah, I saw that the other day. Yeah, there you go.
Grace Gibson, my fiance, just chimed in and said it's such a good song.
Great song.
Thank you, Grace, she's watching in the other room, I think. By the way, this background here was courtesy of Grace. She propped it up for me and everything.
It's beautiful. You win the background battle. I had to move, so yeah. Tell Grace congrats and give her a big hug for me. So
I want to show you something else too as we're sitting here. We're in the office in my place. That there was an old gift from Tony Wiley, the VP of Communications for the Texans. Obviously, it says, picture this, Reggie Bush is a Houston Texan. That was an actual SI Kids mock-up they made when the Texans – so the Texans actually thought they were going to draft Reggie Bush. I think even the PR staff did. Yeah. They were working with Sports Illustrated. Oh, I messed my background up now. Hold on. There we go. They were working with Sports Illustrated to make that. And that was a gift that Tony Wiley, who left the Texans, worked for the Redskins, gave to me when I left the Texans. But, you know, speaking of the draft, one of the ultimate what ifs, I think. What if Reggie Bush was on the Texans? What if Vince Young was on the Texans? But I guess they did all right.
We were talking about this last night on the radio. So I'm out in Lubbock when that happened, and I just covered the Alabama versus Texas Tech Cotton Bowl, and Bama won that by a field goal. Great defensive struggle, and D'Amico Ryans was on that team, and I got to interview D'Amico before the game. He's a really impressive guy, and somebody asked him, like, are you guys going to blitz because it's such a weird offense? He's like, nope, we're just going to play our defense. And then, like, in the game, he blitzed twice. Looked like he was shot out of a cannon both times. He sacked Graham Harrell. Or, no, Cody Hodges. But when the Texans took Mario Williams, I was done. I was like, I'm done with these guys. They should have taken Vince Young. He's the Michael Jordan of football. This is the dumbest. I'm never going to watch a Texans game again. Well, then the second round starts, and they take D'Amico Ryans, and I was like, well, I like that pick, actually. I'm going to give him a chance. I like that. And he wound up being the best player out of that draft class. Yeah, that was a great draft because you had Owen Daniels in there. You had Eric Winston in there. But, I mean, D'Amico was amazing. And
you wound up being the most valuable player of the Texans front office 10 years later.
I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, kind of joking, but you did win the everybody I think should know this, that you won the Spirit of the Bull Award a year ago, which the Texans annually give out to the basically employee of the year.
Yeah.
And was very, very proud to see that come through. And I saw, I think, Vita post about it on social media, your wife.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, was well-deserved, man. I think you've been there about 10 years. And, you know, who would have thought when you were trashing the Texans when they drafted Mario Williams that all those years later you'd end up there?
Bananas, man. 14 years after that, yeah. That was fun. It was a fun day. We always have a fun party. It's like the end of the year business meeting, and they announced that who wins that award. And it's pretty cool. They had a band, you know, beforehand and after playing songs. It was a good time. So it was a happy day.
Well deserved, man. Very well deserved. I mean, as many years I worked for the Texans, 6 years, I guess to be exact. Never heard anybody say a bad thing about you. So very happy to see that. But I did want to ask you a little bit too about, you mentioned our time in Hawaii, going to the Pro Bowl.
That was fun.
What are some of your favorite memories there of Pro Bowl experience and getting to travel with the team in general?
Traveling with the team in general, unless you're flying on your own plane or flying first class, I mean, there's no better way to travel. I think it's probably better than flying first class because you get to the stadium in the morning and you go through security there and you get on a bus. The bus has a police escort to the airport, so you don't have any traffic. It drives right onto the tarmac. You get off the bus, you pick up your bag, you walk 10 feet and walk up the steps onto the plane. The flight attendants are there. They're happy to see you. give everybody hugs as they get on. Would you like some snacks? Would you like some drinks? I mean, there's all sorts of food and drink to eat, and it's just you have a row, not a row, but a seat in between you. It's just the way to fly. I mean, it's awesome. And then it's the same thing once you land. You go get whisked away to a nice hotel, and it's cool. It's really
I miss that. I remember going from the first time I traveled with the team to flying Southwest like a week later, and I fly Southwest now for almost everything. But
yeah,
that was a wake up call.
My first year, so 2009, I was dating my wife. She's now my wife, Vita, and we went to Baltimore to visit family in November after the bye. So it's like mid-November, and we get on the plane, and we're still dating, so there's two seats, and one of them was the window, one of them was the middle. And so I was like, no, you take the window. So I was like being the good guy. So I'm like sitting in the middle seat. So I texted you and our former boss, Nick Shank. I was like, WTF. I didn't get a hug. There's no steak on this plane. I'm sitting in the middle seat. I had to go through security at the airport. And you guys had good responses to that one. So that was fun.
Yeah. Back in the good old days, man. So what have you been picking up from your kids during your time at home? I've seen you posting a lot of entertaining Instagram videos, makeup, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So basically every day begins with a walk. I take the two little ones, the 4-year-old who you just saw a little bit earlier in this. I take the 4-year-old and the 2-year-old on a walk, and we go about 30 minutes around the neighborhood just to kind of get the twins going on their morning Zoom classroom sessions. And so we do that, and then my girl twin Marie, she was putting makeup on the baby, the 2-year-old, a few days ago, and basically just coated her face with paint. She looked like a clown, and it was a good time. So check it out on my Instagram store. I'll have to put that back up.
Seems like they're keeping you very entertained for sure.
Very entertaining. There's lots of yelling from them, lots of screaming, throughout the week. So, yeah, there's always something going on in this household.
I know you were kind of making fun of people who are picking up new hobbies and things like that, but
I'm not making fun of them. I'm envious. I wish I could.
I was gonna say
I'm all for it. I just don't have the time to.
I just got a keyboard in the mail that as a late birthday present that I'm excited to try and start learning to play the piano. We'll see.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like to type better. I didn't know if you were.
No, like a musical one.
That's good. I play a little bit of piano. You should definitely go for it. It's good. It'll expand your brain in different ways.
That's good. Maybe I'll hit you up for some lessons. You can do a lesson on Instagram Live.
Okay.
All right. So I've got a few questions here for you to wrap this up.
Go.
As I mentioned, Drew Dougherty, host of Houston Texans TV, been with the Texans for about 10 or 11 years. You have a great segment that you do on HoustonTexans.com called Drew's Dozen, and a dozen questions, and you had me on not too long ago, which I appreciate.
That was a good time.
I think I have 5 questions for you.
All right.
So almost half of a dozen to wrap things up here. So number 1, what is the dumbest question that you've ever asked on air?
Oh, gosh. I've done it. I know I've done it. I can't think of one, right? But trust me, I've done it. And I can't think of any right now.
Any embarrassing moments?
I don't think it was a dumb question, but the first time I went to a press conference in Lubbock, Bob Knight was the basketball coach for a little bit. I asked him something like, it was a preseason press conference, and I asked him something like, he'd been talking about, he had a bunch of players coming in from either junior college or they were freshmen, and the learning process was taking some time. And so I think I asked, like, well, is there any way that you can accelerate the learning process? And like he was about to answer, I could tell he was about to answer the question, and then he remembered, oh, I don't know who this guy is, so I've got to Bob Knight him. And he was like, accelerate the learning process. That's something you journalists come up with. And it's just like, I was like, okay. And then afterwards, everybody else was like, Don't worry, he does that to everybody who doesn't know. So yeah, that was about it. But I have asked dumb questions. I do it routinely. I just can't remember off the top of my brain. But I'm going to think about it while you ask me other stuff.
Okay. Well, you're a pro, and I don't think you have very many dumb questions, but
I have.
I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with there.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, who is faster in a pool, Drew Dougherty or Michael Phelps?
Oof. Yeah, he's the greatest champion of all time, any sport. Because he's done it longer and won at a higher level than anybody.
Yeah.
So he is obviously – that's one thing that I'm really like – I think I'm in a great spot because I've got my job and everything and I'm healthy, but that's what I – like the guilty pleasure I'm missing, not being able to swim laps because that's how I exercise these days. I swim before I go into work and, the pool's closed and the weight room's closed, so I'm not getting to do that, so I'm missing. Yeah,
prolific swimmer. Record say, what did you win, like 3 state titles at Strake?
Didn't swim in high school. I weighed about $145. I was about 3 or 4 inches shorter than I am now, but still had the same size head. So like a massive head. I was a runner. I ran cross country and track, and I was a good, good high school runner on a pretty good team, but that was about it.
All right. Another thing I love about you is you are a big history buff. And so my third question is, who was the 22nd president of the United States?
Oh, man. 22nd. Is that when they had all those Ohio, New
22.
York guys?
22.
Is that when they had all the
There's no significance to that number. I just picked that one at random because I feel like you know all of these.
I don't know. Is it Warren G. Harding?
It's Grover Cleveland.
Oh, yeah.
Expected better from you.
He was from Ohio or New York, wasn't he?
I think he's from Ohio.
Yeah, because those 2 states had the president for like 20, 30 years in a row.
I always enjoy your little tidbits about history from our time together in the press box and other days. So you've shown me some good Twitter accounts to follow in that regard as well.
Oh, thanks.
True or false, SMU is better known as the USC of Texas?
No one's ever said that. Now, people have said USC is the SMU of the West, but no. The comparison, they're similar schools in that they're private schools and they're good education and everything, but that's about it, man. That's about it.
All right. Drew went to SMU. I went to USC, and we often talk about this.
Like you got to cover national champion teams. Yeah, I mean, some of the greatest teams in college football history, really, like that span that you were there. Yeah. Whereas I was at SMU in the late 90s, and they went 6-5 my sophomore year, and they had losing seasons every other year. They played in the Cotton Bowl for their home season or home games, where that seats 70,000, 80,000 people, and we put like 18,000 people. So I mean, you could stretch out, and you could have like 9 seats to yourself if you wanted. But I mean, we had fun, but we weren't very good.
Well, this last question is a little bit of a softball. Should be easier, but who is your favorite player on the Texans to interview, past and present?
So one from each or just all time?
Yeah, both.
All time is Cody. Cody's so much fun.
Sean Cody.
Yeah, Sean Cody. Because we had that show with him, and we count him as a friend. He's always up. He had a Billie Eilish cutout in his thing that I did with him last week. I mean, he's always up for something. Always going to do something goofy. Current. I mean, there's a lot of guys on the current team. There's so many. Like JJ is one. He's always cool to chat with. But then you got a guy like AJ Moore, who he's led the team in special teams tackles the last 2 years. You'd love him. He's from Mississippi. He went to Ole Miss. And
I'm sold already.
He has a twin brother named CJ, who is also a special teams leader for the Detroit Lions. And he would be farming if he weren't playing football right now. I've had some good conversations with him. He's really, really cool. But I mean, you could name a guy, and I could tell you some fun stuff, fun interactions I've had with him. And it's a locker room full of cool people. So
yeah, I talked a little bit with Colin Gillespie, the fullback.
Another
earlier
good
this
one. Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
12th man at A&M.
Whitney Merciless, I got to throw him in there. He's really – John Weeks, our long snapper, he's a Pro Bowler. I mean, he's great. Like, just all these different types of characters and personalities. They're so much fun to talk with.
Yeah. All right, going back to the first question, the dumbest question you've asked on air.
You know, I
Can't think.
of it right now. I wish if I'd have prepped, I would have known. The Bob Knight one stands out. Like, okay, so the first time, I do the sideline reporting now for the Texans for the preseason games, and I have to ask Bill O'Brien a couple questions as he's walking in the locker room at the half. And the very first game he coached, 14, out in Arizona, I mean, the Texans, they were down like 24-0 at the half. They did everything wrong. And I mean, there are few things you could really ask him that, because I work for the team. They want the team.
There's nothing positive you can say. Yeah.
And so I just kept it generic. I was like, what do you think of the first half? What do you need to do? And he's like, got to coach better, got to play better. And so I asked a follow-up, and he said, got to coach better, got to play better. And I knew what the score was. I knew what I was just like, okay, coach, thanks a lot. We'll see you later. And just let him go. Because he didn't want to, and I don't blame him. He didn't want to talk to me. But nothing was to be gained if I'd have kept going on and going in at him. But, like, a lot of people had a good laugh at that one. Understand?
Yeah. So. I think it leads into something I wanted to ask you as well. I remember I stopped working for the Texans in 2013, right after the Texans had gone 12-4, won the division 2 years in a row, looked like a Super Bowl caliber team, and then they went 2-14. And I just thought about the whole next season, how hard that must have been. I mean, for everybody there on the team, but to be doing your job where you're on the radio, you're on TV, you're on Twitter, and you're saying positive things about the team. How do you tune some of that stuff out and just focus on, positive things when, for example, DeAndre Hopkins trade happens and everyone's being so critical? How do you strike that balance and just try and keep moving, looking forward and keeping positive?
Well, listen, I understand the anger. I mean, about both of us, about then and about now, I understand where people want to win or people want a Super Bowl champion. I do too. I think what made 13 really easier to deal with in that regard was my wife and I had our twins that spring, like late May. So, like, yeah, we're in the midst of a 14-game losing streak, but, I've got 6-month-old babies to worry about. And so that kind of took a lot of attention away. And I'm kind of good about compartmentalizing and just not thinking about stuff. So when I left the office, if I didn't need to be thinking about stuff, I could kind of tune out. And that made it easy because there were a lot of distractions with the twins in a good way. It was fun seeing them grow up. That made it a lot easier. And then now, we've got a 2-year-old and 3 other kids. So I think I have a pretty good perspective on things. But, I understand why people are mad. We all do. Everybody that works for this organization, Bill O'Brien understands. I mean, and everybody wants to win here. And we're going to see what happens. So I'm looking forward to what this year holds. But, yeah, we know what time it is.
Yeah, I got to say, I'm a little bit excited and intrigued to see what happens with David Johnson, the running back who was acquired in the DeAndre Hopkins trade.
Yeah, totally. I mean, a lot of those guys, Brandon Cooks and, the wide receivers, some of the guys that are coming back, the tight ends, Duke Johnson, the offensive line last year, when they had that setup that we think will be the one this year where it was left to right, Tunsil, Sharping, Martin, Fulton, and Howard. When those guys started together, they only started 6 games together, but they were 5-1 when they started together. So that was a successful combination. So you got to make sure they stay healthy because you can't rely on 6 games, every year. But I think the foundation is in place up front with Tunsil, with Sharping, with Martin, with Howard, and maybe Fulton. We'll see what happens there. But that's 4 guys who are pretty young and pretty productive, and just starting to reach their peak.
Well,
Tunsil was amazing.
Yeah, I've become increasingly pessimistic as the years go on, but you just got me a little bit excited there, Drew.
Yeah, and then but the biggest thing of it all is, man, that does sting it really stings seeing Hopkins leave. He's one of the greatest Texans ever.
Yeah.
But Deshaun Watson's coming back, and that's all that matters. I mean, if that guy's under center, you're in it. You've got a chance every single game. So
yeah,
that's the thing to remember above all else. No matter who's coaching, no matter who's playing around him, as long as he's in there, you have a chance.
Absolutely. We just had Ryan Lashane join from Riel.
Awesome.
Hi, Ryan.
Hey, Ryan.
He was on yesterday. German Texan said hello as well. But so it sounds like we've got some reasons for optimism whenever football does return. Hopefully it returns on time. Yeah. Debbie the Texan said that's exactly right to your comments, I think, Drew. Can you, looking forward to all the coverage of the draft this weekend on HoustonTexans.com. Can you just tell everybody who is joining now what you guys have on tap and what the Texans have on tap this weekend?
Yeah, make sure you're following us on Twitter and on Facebook and Instagram because we're going to have stuff on Zoom. We'll have a pre-draft show tomorrow night before we get pick in and get going. Once the picks happen, we'll have Zooms with some of the players. You'll hear from Bill O'Brien on Texans Radio. John Harris, one of my best friends, he's going to be on for, I think, like 97 hours straight this weekend, starting tonight, basically going till like late Saturday afternoon. Nobody knows, the college game like this guy, and he meshes it with his knowledge of the NFL. I mean, you'll learn something talking to him every time. Personalizes everything. It's really cool. So we've got so much coming your way. I mean, I've shot that video, and I've sent it to you and our former boss, Nick Scurfield. I've shot the video of, like, everybody in our room, and there's, like, 16 people in our apartment. It used to just be me, you, him, and we'd share an intern with some folks. So we've grown with that. So is our coverage.
Yeah, I had, like, half a cubicle that jutted into the copy machine that all the coaches use. But, yeah, you guys have come a long way for sure.
Yes, we sure have.
So that's all HoustonTexans.com, and then the Houston Texans Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, and the mobile app too. I mean, you make sure you have the Houston Texans mobile app because, I mean, that'll hammer you with information if you let it.
Are you posting content on the Texans social media pages these days?
No. I used to kind of help with that, but no, they have like professionals doing it now. So we've got some other people doing it.
You're a professional, Drew.
Yeah,
don't
but we got some hipper, younger folks that know what the score is doing it. So.
Yeah. That used to scare the crap out of me when I would just look at my phone and I'd open up Twitter and it would go from my account to the team account automatically. Yep. And I was always worried I was going to be like that intern that got fired for tweeting the wrong thing by accident.
And you never were, man. Congratulations. Pat yourself on the back for that. That's a gamble, man. And every time you open your phone, that's a gamble. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry I didn't wear a Texans shirt. I'm sorry I didn't wear a running game shirt. But
I expect nothing less from you, man. I like the Hawaiian shirt. It looks good. That's who you are.
I'm trying to do it for every one of them, man. But Drew, I appreciate you coming on, man, and looking forward to all the coverage of the draft. Glad to see your smiling face as always. And like I said, we'll be attempting to save this and post it on IGTV. We'll put it up on YouTube, and we should have an audio version for people to listen to as well. But Drew Dougherty, the face of Houston Texans TV, best of luck this weekend, man.
Deshaun Watson and J.J. Watt are the face of the Texans. So thanks for the
You're the face of Texans TV.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. I miss you, man. I hope you're doing great. Glad you got Grace there to quarantine with and give her a hug for us, and hope we see you sooner than later with all this going on, man.
Same. Likewise, Davita and the kids. Thanks to my mom. She said it's awesome seeing you, Drew.
Margaret.
And Debbie said she enjoyed it.
Debbie is, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. There's a better Texans fan than Debbie. I mean, she brings it, and she's awesome. And I hope she knows that we appreciate her. So because we do. Really
agreed. And there's certainly not a better internet TV host. I'm just kidding. You do more than just internet TV. But then you, Drew. And seriously, man, great talking to you. And we'll be looking forward to seeing all your content this weekend.
Thanks, bud. Good seeing you, man.
All right. Take care.